Hello, good evening, everyone. If you're like me, you want to have better blood sugar control without all the fuss. Counting carbs is a great way to do that, and adjusting your insulin dose can help make sure your blood sugars stay stable throughout the day. I'm going to show you how to do that in this video. Welcome. If you're new to me, I'm Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Woode with an E. The E stands for endocrinology, and here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health, take charge of your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level and connect, right? That's the new word we're adding, connect. Hopefully you had a great weekend. Good weather. We had some rain, but overall, it was a great weekend. Hopefully you had a great Monday. I know I did. Got a chance to hang out with my team and take care of some patients today. And now I'm here hanging out with you. If you're new, also go ahead and put new in the comment because we'd love to give you a shout out and also give you some hand claps and some music. Like we do it here on the channel. And then if you have questions as we go throughout the discussion tonight, go ahead and put those in the comments so that we'll be able to grab those and get to them and answer those questions. If you have questions, if you're watching this on the replay, go ahead and put hashtag replay and then put that question in the chat as well. Go ahead and hit us up on our social media platforms. If you are on those, if you're seeing any of our stuff, let us know that you're out there. We love to connect and we love to engage with you. We are in March, y'all, March 13th, and we're halfway through this month, halfway through the month. And we are halfway through the last month of this quarter. As I said last time we met, that I want you to make sure that you're taking the time to check to see how your new year is going. Have you done all the things this year that you said that you were going to do in this first quarter? And if you haven't, right, this is the time to kind of redouble your effort and to get out there and start working to make those things happen. Because this quarter, right, sets the tone for the rest of the year. And we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make this an amazing year, right? Go back and watch the video I did, how to make 2023 an amazing year. Make sure you watch that and get to do some of those things. Okay. If you've been out there, you saw that we have been doing lots of videos. So let me hop over to let's make sure that you can see that first of all. Ooh, not that one. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Right. So this is where we are right now. But I want you to make sure that you are looking at some of the other videos that we've done. We did a section called Diabetes 101. Diabetes 101. You see that there, where we went through about 25 or 30 different videos on diabetes to let you know all the things that are in diabetes, right? So all the things that you need to know about diabetes. Designing a new you. That's the one that you see right there at the top of the screen. Designing a new you. And this one, I think there were, 27 maybe videos that we did, starting everything from mindset, how to find your purpose, right? A guide, where is it? Yeah, here we go. Discovering what your life is really all about. What does success mean to you? The incredible power of journaling. 7 steps to changing any area of your life. A guide to changing your life with the wheel of life. So lots of different things that we did out there. Make sure you get out there and watch those and take note of them. We'd love to have you get to some of those, okay? If you are here, yes, we are so excited that we have our first offering for the month, for the year, our first event, I guess, let me say, for the year. And that first event is our Sugar Busters. Let me see if I can pull that up here really quickly. That is our Sugar Busters. There you go. Sugar Busters with Dr. Dwain Woode. There are so many complications of the chronic diseases that we don't talk about. Right? We talk about the eyes, we talk about the feet, we talk about kidneys, but we don't talk about the depression. We don't talk about the loneliness. We don't talk about the anxiety. And all those things that we find ourselves dealing with as a result of our chronic illnesses. And most of our chronic illnesses, if you talk about them at some point, something about sugar comes up. And so in Sugar Busters, we're going to spend some time going through figuring out how do we reverse some of those? How do we make sure that we are doing the things we need to do for our health? And I see that we have a new guest, Chris Grosvenor, I think is how you pronounce that. Hey, man. Thanks for coming through. And Chris says, let me pop him up on the screen. Where we are. Oh, so Chris is from Indiana. I see that. Indiana basketball. He says, newbie here. Great setup. Digging Yoda back. Yeah, man. Yoda, that's my Zen right there. So, Chris, thanks for coming through, man. Really appreciate you hanging out with us. Okay. So, Sugar Busters. So make sure you get that. We'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. So let's hop over to what we're going to be talking about tonight, and let's go ahead and get started. And we talk a lot about diabetes, right? Tonight we're talking about how to count carbs and adjust insulin. Last week we did the how to adjust insulin one, and there we were talking about how to adjust basal bolus insulin. So people who are just on doses of insulin where they're not counting carbs. And so tonight we're continuing in that same vein of talking about insulin and how do we get better blood sugars, but we're talking tonight about how do we carb count and how do we improve our blood sugar by adjusting our insulin. At the outset here, let me continue to say always, when you are listening to things and you're hearing things here on the channel, I want to make sure that you are talking with your healthcare provider as they are helping you implement. Are they helping you adjust any of the things that we talk about? Okay. Make sure that you are talking with healthcare providers. I don't want you just hanging out there by yourself working on this, because you heard me mention that extra word, community and connection. Right? As we are growing here on this channel, as we're growing this community, we want the community to be safe. And so as we get all of those people who are out there to join the community and to come alongside with us, we have all the experts of your physician, your healthcare provider, your nurse practitioner, your nutritionist, your physical therapist, right? Your trainer. All of those people are people that we want to make sure that they're coming into this community and they're helping us and helping you as you're implementing some of the things that we're talking about. Okay. All right. And we see Cheryl. Hey, thanks for coming through. Cheryl said, I'm new. Let me pop you up on the screen. Cheryl, thanks for coming through and hanging out with us. And then we've got Ashley McHenry and Ella. Thank you guys for popping in. Okay. All right. So sugar. Yeah. Sugar. Oh, honey. Okay. That's my version. I'm not going to sing anymore. Okay. So how do we count carbs and how do we adjust insulin? So let's talk a little bit about why we need to do this. And you've probably seen screens like this or videos like this or graphics like this. Keeping our A1C in target, right, reduces our complications, whether it's nerve damage, eye damage, kidney disease, right? For type 1 diabetics, we know that we can decrease the complications of those three things by 56 to 76%. That's huge, y'all. All right, so just making sure that we're keeping our A1C in target. And we'll talk about what target is here in a minute. When we talk about type 2 diabetics, now the numbers are not as big in terms of the percentages, but look at those 16 to 34% decrease in heart attacks, eye damage, and kidney damage. That's nothing to sneeze about. We said that we have 37 million people in the United States that are diabetics, and around the world, 460 million, almost 500 million that are diabetics. Our target for A1C is 6.5 is what I tell people, but below 7 is what most of the organizations say, depending on which one you're looking at. All of them say it's below 7. Some of them are a little bit more stringent, and they say, hey, we want you to get down to a 6.5. And that's what I usually tell my patients, 6.5, because at 6.5, we have some leeway to get a little higher, a little lower. And once again, that is an average, right? So remember that is an average that we are looking at. And so that's the reason, those are the reasons why we do what we do. And we want to make sure that we are getting those A1Cs down so that we can protect. Now, if you know somebody who has diabetes out there, go ahead and put yes in the comment. Hashtag, no, just yes in the comment. Yes in the comment if you know somebody who has diabetes. So our goal is 6.5. When we talk to people about diabetes, we tell them that we want them to, in a meal, have about 45 grams of carbs. 45 grams of carbs, all right? That's what we tell people, 45 grams of carbs. Now, as we talk more and more about diabetes, people say, well, why 45 grams? Do you think there's a magic number in 45? Do you think so? 45 is a magic number? And the answer is no, it's not a magic number, but 45 allows us to have some relatively good control. The average person eats between 60 and 120 grams of carbs per meal. And if we're talking about controlling blood sugar, right, the more carbs that we have in our meal, the more treatment we need. Now, notice I say treatment. I didn't say medication, because there are lots of things that we can do to treat blood sugars. Or there are things that we can do to treat blood sugars. Let me say a lot, but right? So medication is one of them. If you have not watched our videos on Diabetes 101, right, those 26 videos, we walk through some of the things we can do. We talked about non-medication treatment. We talk about insulin sensitizers that are not prescription. We talked about exercise and lifestyle, and there's a whole bunch of stuff. So make sure you get back there and watch it. And so Cheryl is saying yes. So she said, I asked, do we know anybody out there with diabetes? And she says yes. So Cheryl is most of us will know somebody who has diabetes, right? Like I said, 37 million in the country. 37 million in the country. All right. So when we talk about 45 grams of carbs, the question that people ask, well, how do we figure out 45 grams of carbs? And that is a very good question. And to answer that question, I have a little layout here that I'm going to show you. So let's go ahead and let's pull that up. Let's see. I think it's that one. Yeah, there we go. All right. Do you recognize some of those things? Right? You should recognize some of them. And those are, get this thing out of the way here. So those are some of the things that are in our diet. Now, where did I go? Looks like I disappeared. Wait a minute. Get myself on the screen. Hold on a second, guys. There we go. And let's make me, what shape? You think I should be a circle? How about a circle? How about that? There we go. Okay. I think that works. All right. So that's me, right? So that's me, and that's all the food. So what I want to do, there we go. All right. So that'll work for now. So what I want to do is I want us to kind of walk through some of the carb counting. So how do we carb count? The first thing that I want to talk about really is let's take a look at one of these packages. Let's do this one. Let's do the tofu. I'm gonna hold the tofu up. All right. And so let's see. Is that good? Let's probably hold down a little bit. Okay. All right. So the first thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we're looking at labels. Make sure we're looking at labels. And I don't know if you can see that one properly. How about this one? Yeah, there we go. Okay. So if you look at the section that says carbs, right on here. So for this package, it says total carbs, 9 grams. Total carbs, 9 grams. And the first thing we want to do is we want to learn how to read labels. Because some of the other things are going to have a little trick to them, but for right now, labels is probably the easiest way. So when you go to pick up something, when you go to a container, when you go to a package, right, the nutritional information on there tells you how many carbs there is in something, right? It tells you how many carbs there are. And having a good grasp of that is very important, because then you don't have to figure out how many carbs are in the thing. We'll talk about some other things here in a minute where that's going to be important to know, right? Because you have to figure those out. But the simplest ones are where you have the information already given to you. So you look at the package, and on the package you'll see something that says carbs, right? Total carbs in the package. So let's take a look at one of these. I'm going to see if I can grab this one. And move some of those apples. All right, so let's get back over there. Let's see, here we go. Okay. All right, so on this package, when I look at the carbs, right, so total carbs, there are 37 grams of carbs. That may not be clear to you, but that says 37 grams of carbs per serving. 37 grams of carbs, right? So that's this honey checks. 37 grams of carbs per serving. So that if I say that I'm going to do 45 grams of carbs per meal, and here I'm using 37 grams of carbs per serving, in this box, then I have 8 more grams of carbs that I can eat. Does that make sense so far? Right? So 37 grams of carbs per serving in this box. So that would be one way to know how many carbs there are in something. Just look at the package. And we're not here looking at sugars. So let me make that point to you. So we're not looking at sugars, we're looking at carbs, the total carbs. Because sometimes people are looking at sugar in a package and they say no sugar, 0 sugar. And that's a whole nother conversation, right? So one of the things that we're going to be doing in our group, right, is going to be talking about some of those sugars. And exactly, look at what Chris says, right? Let me pop that up. Chris says, I find labels to be deceiving given serving sizes in a container. Like, how is a snack size of popcorn like 3 servings? All right, for instance, yeah. So Chris, look at this. Let me pop this up. Let's get back over here. So Chris, look at this, right? So this bag, right? This bag has 1 serving. Okay? That's 1 serving. And it has, let's see, where are the carbs? Total carbs. It has 9 grams of carbs. Now, this one we buy specifically for my son, right? Because we're trying to cut back on calories and so forth. Anyway, we buy this for him. If I look at, let's see, here is a can of pineapple chunks. And when I look at the back of this can of pineapple chunks, let me see if I can get that in focus for you guys. No, maybe I do it on this one. Hold on a second. If I can get my cameras back up. So let's see. Yeah, you probably can't see it on this one either, but that's okay. Okay, there we go. There we go. Right? So if you look at, So if you look at the serving size, right, they say that this can has 4.5 servings per container, right? So this can right here has 4.5 servings per container. That's incredible to me. But yeah. Okay. So that's what we have. And then on that same can, there are 15 grams of carbs per serving. All right. So 15 grams of carbs per serving. So if we said that someone can take 45 grams of carbs, right? And let's change what they say. Let's assume that this can, they said there are 4 servings. Let's take the half out of there. 4 servings in this, right? Then you can have 3 servings of this can, and that would make up your 45 grams of carbs. All right. So the first thing is learning to read labels. Another one that I have here is this thing of tofu. Let's see if I can get that to focus. Let me get my face out of it, because I think when my face is in it, it won't focus. All right, so here's a can of tofu, extra firm. And if you look down there, let's see, where is the carbs? Total carbs. Total carbs in this one, 1 gram of carb per serving. And then this thing says it has, let's see, how many servings is in here? How many servings are in here? 4.5 servings, right? So if you eat this entire thing, right, you're getting 4.5 carbs, 4.5 grams of carbs, because it's 1 gram per serving, 4.5 servings in the package. And so multiply those and we get 4.5 grams. So that's what you would do. Let's take another one. So this here, first let me look at it before I show it to you guys. So is that 44? Okay, so let's take a look at this one. Okay. So this one says the 44 grams of carbs per serving, and there are 6 servings in this package. All right. Now, let me ask you a question. How many of us kind of abide by that? Right? Not many. Okay. All right. So that's the first thing, right? Making sure that we can read the labels, And then there are some things where the label is not as obvious. And so now we begin working on how we calculate those, right? So let's pop back over here and let's take a look at this apple. And what I tell people is if you have a small apple, right? If you have a small apple, 1 small apple is about 15 grams of carbs. And right, once again, we're rounding, right? So 1 small apple, 15 grams of carbs. If you have an orange, a small orange, 15 grams of carbs. If you have half a banana, 15 grams of carbs. So you want to start learning in your life what 15 grams of carbs look like. I don't have them here with me, but grapes, about 10 grapes, 15 grams of carbs. So when you're looking at things where there is not a label, then you have to kind of get a gestalt, right? So here's my hand. Here's my hand. And if you can fit it, if you make a cup with your hand like this, if you can fit something in there, that's about 15 grams of carbs. Now, this is for stuff that, like rice and so forth. This is not like cheesecake. Because cheesecake won't be 15 grams of carbs if you put it in there. Okay? All right. So that's the carb counting. So number one, we want to look at the package. You want to look at the package. When you look at the package, you want to see how many grams of carbs per serving, and it'll give you that number. And then how many servings are in the package. So I'm going to give you a quick example. Let's go back and let's take a look at the pasta. Okay? Let's assume that this pasta, and this is just makeup. This is just make believe. Let's assume that the pasta had 30 grams of carbs per serving. And there were 2 servings in this box. Then if I wanted to have 30 grams of carbs, then I would eat half the box of pasta. Once again, that's just an example, right? So those aren't real numbers, but just to give you an idea. So 30 grams of carbs per serving and there are 2 servings in the box, in order to get 30 grams, then I would eat half the box. If I want to get 60 grams, I'd eat the whole box. Right? And then there are things that you can think. Well, let me say it a little differently. Let's assume. Well, let me give you an example, and let's get back to our screen here. So let's assume that you wanted to have 45 grams of carbs, and you wanted to eat multiple things. Like, you don't want your entire meal to be just the pasta. Okay? And so you decided you wanted to have some fruit. So you can have an apple, a small apple, that's 15 grams of carbs. You can have an orange, that's 15 grams of carbs. And if you remember, when we looked at this can, it said that 15 grams per serving of the can. So I can have 15 grams of pineapple from that can. And that would give me 45 grams of carbs. So notice what I did. I didn't eat one thing. I ate multiple things, and I still got my 15 grams of carbs. I mean, I still got my 45 grams of carbs total. So it's kind of like somebody giving you $45 and telling you, hey, you could spend this $45 however you want. So if you wanted, right, let's do a silly example, right? Let's put those out, and let's bring this guy back. Right? We said that this bag of Smart Food white cheddar popcorn, that was 1 gram per serving, and there was 1 serving in the box. So if I wanted to have 45 grams and all I wanted was popcorn, I can eat 45 bags of this Smart Pop, right? The Smart Food popcorn. Do you see what I just did? So each bag is 1 gram. And I said, hey, you can have 45 grams of carbs per meal. And you say, you know what? I don't want to eat rice today. I'm just going to eat popcorn say you're going to eat popcorn for lunch, and that's all you want. With those numbers, right, you can have 45 bags of this popcorn. Now, do I want you to have that? Not necessarily. I want you to have some other nutritional things. But yeah, you can do it like that, right? If you currently are out there and you carb count, you know how to carb count, put yes in the comments. Yes in the comments, right? So 45 grams of carbs per meal. 45 grams of carbs per meal is where we want to be. Right? That's amazing, right? So that's the carb counting. And carb counting is very important because it allows us to do what we're going to talk about here in just a minute. We are going to learn how to adjust our insulin. Once again, if you are out there, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. If you have not already done so, please subscribe to our channel. Let your folks, friends, family, everybody in your community know that we are here, that I am here, what we're doing, and that we are growing, And my goal is to educate, empower, and encourage people to enjoy their lives. I want them to have fun. I want them to create the life they always wanted, going to the next level and avoiding complications. Yes. So Jeff says, yes. So he knows how to carb count. Chris says, yes. Am I good about keeping those carbs low? Is another question. Man, Chris, that's all of us, man. That's all of us. Right? And then Cheryl said a little. But Cheryl, that's why we're here, right? We are all learning together. We're all learning to get together. Awesome. Okay. So make sure that you are sending this. Send this out to all your family, friends, people that you know in your circle, in your community who need to have this kind of information, and we'll go from there, right? If you know someone who takes insulin, put that in the comments. Say yes. Deborah Starkey. Hey, Deborah. She says yes. Deborah, hey, thanks for coming through. and then Jeff. Yeah, Jeff, thank you for stopping by as well, man. All right. So that's what we do. That's what we do. All right. So let's go ahead and let's pop over to our amazing question wheel. And this is a great place for us to do that. So here we are. All right, so our amazing question wheel. If you're new to us, if you're new to the question wheel, this is how it works. You'll see some questions on the wheel. I'm going to spin the wheel, and whatever question it lands on, we're going to answer. And the trick is I've got to do the answer in 45 seconds. 45 seconds. Once I do that, I'm going to make a little clip of it, and we'll post it. And you probably have seen some of our clips. This is one of the ways that we get that done. Right here on the show, you get to see it. We will post that. I will post that on our social media platforms. And you see those there on the medicine bottle right in the picture. We've got Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, and even on Twitch. Right now, these folk won't be going to Twitch, but you'll see some of our videos on Twitch if you're out there. Okay, so 45 seconds when I do that. If you would like your question to show up on this wheel, go ahead and send those to us. You can send them to Dwood at DwainWoodMD.com, Dwood at DwainWoodMD.com. You can direct message us at all of our social media platforms. They are Dwain Wood MD. So if you go to any of those and just type in Dwain Wood MD, you'll get to me. Also, you can drop those here in the comment section of this show. So let's go ahead and let's spin the wheel and let's see what we have. Round and round and round it goes. Where it stops, I don't know. All right, let's see what we have. All right, let's see. Can a heart attack be prevented? Can a heart attack be prevented? All right, so let's get that over here, and let me get 45 seconds on the clock. Let me get my head for can a heart attack be prevented? All right, here we go. Can a heart attack be prevented? And the simple answer to that is yes. We can decrease the possibility, we can decrease the risk of having a heart attack by the lifestyle changes that we talk about. That is getting good rest, decreasing your blood sugar, getting cholesterol in the right range, and getting exercise. So yes, we can prevent heart attacks. All right. I think I made it. I think I had like 15 seconds or something to go. All right. So we are talking about carb counting and adjusting insulin. We're talking about carb counting and adjusting insulin. So when we talk about insulin, there are over 7 million people in the United States on insulin. Now around the world, that number is much bigger, right? But in the United States, 7 million on insulin, and we want to work on getting the best possible blood sugars. That's why we do what we do. Because if we can get blood sugars that are in our target range, then we get to decrease the complications. Now, the question that you just saw on the amazing question wheel, that's one of them, right? That's one of the questions. Can we prevent heart attacks? And if we can keep, as you heard me say, if we can keep blood sugars in a range that is not high, if we can keep it in the target range, then we can definitely decrease the chances of heart attack. Okay. All right. So how do we do that? So there are a couple of things that I want us to talk about as we get into this section. And one of them is, there are some of you out there that are on insulin pumps. And this conversation that we are having is valid for you as well. Okay, so if you're on insulin pump or you're not on insulin pump, this is a great conversation because it helps you understand how to adjust insulin. And for insulin pumps, there are several pumps that are out there. The three top ones are what you see. So Medtronic, Insulet, which is the Omnipod, and then the Tandem pump. But the conversation that we're having works for insulin if you're just on insulin, and it also works if you are on an insulin pump. So pay attention to what we're about to do. All right, so let's hop over and let's talk. Well, let's do this first. Let me go back and let me talk about some of the people that I want you to know about. If you've been watching us, you saw some of these people. Let me pop over here first. And we are in the process of talking about blood sugars and how we're going to adjust them, right? And if you remember Sam, Christy, and David, those are the three people that we've been using to talk about insulin and diabetes and treatment. And you'll recall that Sam is a type 1 diabetic. He was diagnosed at age 15. He is on basal insulin, so long-acting insulin, 25 units at night. And we just as easily could have put that insulin in the pump, right? And then he takes 5 units of insulin with each of his meals. So he's on 25 units of long-acting insulin and then 5 units of insulin with his meal. Christy is a type 2 diabetic, and she was diagnosed at age 35. She was on 50 units of insulin at night and then 15 units of insulin with each meal. And once again, we can easily put those insulins in the pump and run them that way. But she's actually taking shots. She's also on metformin, 1,000 milligrams, and then she's also on a GLP-1 receptor agonist. Okay. In the comments, if you know someone who has type 1 diabetes, put yes. Type 1 diabetes, put yes. And then we have David. So David is a type 1 diabetic. He was diagnosed at age 5. He is on basal insulin at night, 5 units. And then he's on bolus, and David is actually carb counting. And you see his numbers down there. We'll talk about what all those mean here in a minute. So type 1, Sam, and David. And then Christy is type 2. And you'll notice something, right? If I back up and I look at Sam, so Sam is on 25 units of insulin. Christy is on 50 units of insulin. And David is on 5 units. And we're talking about the long acting, right? So the basal right now. And that is the case, right? So patients who are type 2 diabetics tend to be on a lot more insulin than type 1s. Because remember, type 2 is an insulin resistant problem. So we have to use more insulin to get their body to respond the way we want it to respond. And then if we take a look at some of the blood sugars look at Sam's blood sugars, his A1C is 8.2. And this was 1 week ago. And those are his blood sugars that you see there. And Christy, right, has similar blood sugars. As a matter of fact, Christy's blood sugars are exactly the same. We don't have our A1C. But if we look at those blood sugars, we'll see that they're not really in the range that we want them to be, right? So they've got 180s, 190s. You got a 200 in there, 192, 180, 190, 217, 180, 172, 196, 164. They've got a couple of good ones. So 92, there's a 70 in there. There's a 122. There's a 133. Now, that's a little higher than I want. And so when we talk about blood sugars, I want blood sugars to be between the range of 100 and 120. 100 and 120 is where we want blood sugars to be. Okay. All right. So Deborah says yes. So I think she's responding to, do I know someone with insulin? Type 1 diabetes. Jeff says yes. And Chris says, yep. Yeah, they're out there. They're out there. Okay. And here's the thing. There are people who are around us who have diabetes that we don't really know. All right. So here we are. So let's pop over. Talk a little bit about carb counting. So we're going to use our carbs, and we said that 45, make sure I can write on this thing here. Yeah. So 40, there we go. Okay. So 45 grams of carbs is what we want to use per meal. 45 grams of carbs per meal. And let's take an example that we have here that we're going to use. All right, so we have our, let's go back to this screen. So we've got our pineapple chunks. We've got our orange, and we have our apple. So that's our 45 grams of carbs. And then we'll use this one over here to kind of fill in if we want to. So 45 grams of carbs. So that's our 45 grams of carbs. And let's assume that someone has an insulin to carb ratio of, let's say 45. So they take 1 unit for every 45 grams of carbs. Okay, so 1 unit for every 45 grams of carbs. So if somebody's eating 45 grams of carbs, I need to be on this side. There we go. If they're eating 45 grams of carbs, then they would take 1 unit. Does that make sense to everybody? So if we say 45 grams of carbs is what they're eating, and their insulin to carb ratio is 45, so they would take, if they eat 45 grams of carbs, they would take 1 unit. Okay, let's get rid of this and let's make it, let's get rid of that one. Oops. Start a new one. There we go. Okay. So let's make their insulin to carb ratio 10. So 10 is their insulin to carb ratio, 1 unit for every 10 grams of carbs. So if this person ate 30 grams of carbs, and we're saying that they get 1 unit for every 10 grams, right? So the first 10, they'd get 1 unit. The second 10, they'll get 1 unit. And the third 10, they get 1 unit. So 30 grams of carbs would give them 3 units of insulin. If you understand, if you're out there, you understand that, I want you to say yes, yes in the comments. Yes, yes. In the comments. Okay, so if you're out there, say yes, yes. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. So let's do another one. If they did 1 unit for every 2 carbs, 1 unit for every 2 carbs. If they ate 20 carbs, how many units would they have to eat? How many units of insulin would they get? Somebody put that in the comments real quick. So 1 unit for every 2 carbs, and they're eating 20 grams of carbs. How many units would they get? And here's a simple formula, right? So you simply take the number of carbs and you divide it by the insulin to carb ratio. So 1 unit, right? So we said 1 to every 2. So that would be in the denominator. And they're eating a number of carbs. So I would say 20 grams of carbs divided by the insulin to carb ratio. So 20 divided by 2 is equal to what? 10. There you go. So so Cheryl, yes. Jeff, yes. 10. Okay, so here's a question from Deborah. Is it easier to control blood sugars if you always have the same amount of carbs per meal? Or can you get good control knowing your personal carb to insulin ratio or dosage ratio? Okay. That is a very excellent question, Deborah. I love it, love it, love it. And so here, let's see if we can help Deborah answer that question. Okay. So one of the reasons that insulin to carb ratio is good, one of the reasons that insulin to carb ratio is good, is that when we're dealing with insulin, and let's say you have a standard dose, right? So let's go back to you took long-acting insulin, and I'm just calling long-acting insulin, and you're taking, let's say 25 units, okay? And then your short-acting insulin, you're taking 5 units. And these are just made-up numbers. And let's assume that you eat for breakfast a bagel, and you eat, you drink some water. And for lunch, you have a salad. And for supper, you have, a steak and potatoes. Okay? And so what we're going to do is we're going to take 5 units here. We're going to take 5 units here. And we're going to take 5 units here. Okay, so that's what we're doing. Now, here's the thing. The 5 units may or may not be appropriate for what we're eating. So let's go here and let's see a bagel. All right, somebody tell me what you think a typical bagel is going to have. How many carbs you think the typical bagel is going to have? If you're out there, go ahead and you can look it up on the internet. Typical bagel. How many carbs? What do you think? Yeah. I think probably I'm going to say 30 grams of carbs for a bagel. So 30 grams of carbs. How many grams of, let's put it right here. 30. How many grams of carbs do you think is going to be in a salad? Let's say, I don't know. Let's say 20. And how many carbs in that potato from the steak and potatoes? Probably 60, right? Deborah says 33. Hey, so I was pretty close, Deborah. Yay, thank you. Hey, Florence. Thanks for stopping by. Florence, yay. Okay. So Deborah says 33 grams of carbs in a bagel. Salad, I'm going to put 20 to 25. And then a potato, 60. So as you see here, Deborah, if I take 5 units, the 5 units may be appropriate for one of those meals, but it's not going to be appropriate for all the meals. Right? So particularly that potato that you're eating at the end of the day. So that when we carb count, if we're carb counting, and let me see, what's the easiest way to do this? So I'm going to try to erase some of this stuff here. I'm going to leave the food down at the bottom because we're going to use that food here in a minute to kind of talk about something, right? And I'm going to give an insulin to carb ratio. Somebody give me an insulin to carb ratio out there. Somebody. Pick a number. Okay, there we go. Okay. So this is our meal. And let's grab this one. Okay. So this is our meal. This is what we had for breakfast, lunch, and supper today. And let's say we have an insulin carb ratio. I don't know. I think you guys are a little delayed for me, so I'm gonna go ahead and pick one myself. But that's all right. Go ahead and put something in. Put something in there. While you do that, let me get rid of this thing. There we go. Right. So insulin to carb ratio. Let's pick one. And I'm going to make it simple. I'm going to say insulin to carb ratio. So let's make it 10, right? Because 10 is easy to divide. So 10, insulin to carb ratio, ICR. So if I do TV to 1 unit, what's TV? All right. So Deborah says TV. I'm not sure what you mean by TV, Deborah. There you go. Okay. Okay. So Deborah said 5 units. Okay. Sure. Let's do 5. Let's do 5. All right. Let's get that in there. So if we divide 30, remember I said the ratio, the formula is food, the total carbs, divided by the insulin to carb ratio, right? So here it would be 30 divided by 5. Here it would be 20 divided by 5. And here it would be 60 divided by 5. Okay? 60 divided by 5. So if I do this calculation, here I'm getting how many units? 6 units, right? So 30 divided by 5. Here I'm getting how many units? 4 units, right? So 20 divided by 5. And here I'm getting how many? I'm getting 12 units. So as you see here with the insulin to carb ratio, the amount of insulin that I get is based on the food that I'm eating. Whereas if I do a fixed dose down here, I'm always getting 5 units. And it may or may not work. May or may not work for me. Yes? Okay. All right. So with that in mind, right? So with that in mind, how do we adjust the insulin? How do we adjust the insulin? And here's how we adjust insulin. So we're going to be having numbers, right? So we have a blood sugar of, 190 in the morning. We have, since we're in the 190s, let's say 200 at lunch. And then maybe in the evening, it comes down a little bit, 160. So just random numbers that I picked. And whatever our insulin to carb ratio is, right? Let's say it's 1 unit for every 5 grams of carbs. Well, let's start a little higher because we're gonna adjust it down. Let's say 10. 1 unit for every 10 grams of carbs. So if I eat, right, let's I do here, and I do 1 unit for every 10 grams of carbs, I do 1 to 10, 1 to 10, 1 to 10. If that's not working, then the next day, what I would do is instead of doing 1 to 10, right, I would do 1 to 9. Now, why would we do 1 to 9? And let me write this down here for you. Let's see. I'm gonna start here. So the reason I would do 1 to 9 is because remember these are fractions, right? So 1 unit for every 10 grams of carbs, and then 1 unit for every 9 grams of carbs, 1 unit for every 8 grams of carbs. So as we get smaller in our denominator, we're actually giving more insulin. Let me use a different example that may make more sense. So if I have 1 over 2, let's see. So if I have 1 over 4, that's 1/4. That is smaller than 1 over 2, which is a half, which is smaller than 1 over 1, which is a whole. So as I get smaller in my denominator, I'm actually giving more insulin. So whenever you're adjusting your insulin, the insulin to carb ratio, what you're doing is you're getting smaller, 1 over 4, 1 over 2, 1 over 1. That's much smaller. So in our example that we did before, right, we went from a 10 down to a 9. We went from a 10, 1 to 10, down to 1 to 9. And if that's not working, then I go from 1 to 9 down to 1 to 8. And if that's not working, then I go down to 7, right? 1 to 7. Of course, watching those numbers and making sure they are where we need them to be. And so if we look at the example of numbers that we had from Sam, Christy, and David, here are some of the numbers, right? So if we're doing a 1 to 10, and the numbers aren't where we want them to be, and let me pop through a little bit, the bolus, right? So the numbers aren't where we want to be. So what we're going to do is we're going to decrease. We go from a 1 to 10 to a 1 to 9 to 1 to 8. And as we do that, we're getting more insulin, and you'll see that those numbers start changing now. Right? So if you look at those lunch numbers are 213, 130, 136, 192, 172. And as we get lower in our denominator, as we give more insulin, right, we change that insulin to carb ratio, then now look at those numbers, 140, 139, 160, 100, 123. And if you want to know what we're shooting for 140, right, less than 140. Go back and watch our video, the one on adjusting insulin to get better control. So that's the one we did last week. And you'll understand what the 1 to 40. So we want blood sugars to be less than or equal to 1 to 40 continually. Now in this one, if you look at the lunch numbers, they have one in there that's 160, right? So it's not perfect, but much better than what we had before. And then once we get the lunch better, then we go and we work on the supper. And we work on those until those numbers are better. Okay, and then we're good. So back over here, all right? So let's go through one more example. So if we have numbers, if we have blood sugars that we're not happy with, 190 for breakfast, 170 for lunch, and 200 for supper. And our insulin to carb ratio is 1 unit for every 5 grams of carbs. That's our insulin to carb ratio. And we take the 1 to 5, 1 to 5, 1 to 5. And those are the numbers that we get. Then the next day, I would go down to 4. So 1 unit for every 4 for breakfast, 1 to every 4 for lunch, 1 to every 4 for supper. Now, here's a beautiful thing about this. Let's assume that for breakfast the next day, right, we're at 120. So that number is less than 140, right? So we don't have to do anything. We can keep doing the 1 to 4. Right? And let's say we get to lunch and it's 120. We don't have to do anything. We do the 1 to 4. But if we get to supper, and it's 90, that means that what we did at lunch did not work. So for supper, I would do 1 to 5. Okay. And then the next morning, I would sorry, not 1 to 5. I did that wrong. I would do 1 to 3. 1 to 3, right? Because we're going down. I do 1 to 3. And so then the next morning, I would start out with 3. Does that make sense? If that makes sense, put yes, yes. Yes, yes. All right. So we're always using the meal before. We're using this number, right, to figure out what that number should be. We're using, well, not that number. We're using the insulin, right, that we're taking here. Let me get rid of this one. Right, we're using the insulin that we're taking to figure out what that number should be. Jeff says yes. All right. Okay. Let's get back over here. So that is carb counting, and then that's adjusting our insulin based on the carbs that we're eating. Right? So 1 unit for every 4 grams of carbs. So it's a fraction. And Deborah says yes, yes. And hey, Grace. Grace says, hey, Dr. Wood, just checking in. Thank you. Always glad that you checked in with us. All right, guys. So that's it. That's carb counting. That's carb counting, and that is adjusting insulin. Okay. There's the show that we did where we went through basal and bolus, right? So these two are a group. And we're to come back. So in order, let me say this, in order for you to be able to use and adjust the insulin, what do you need to know? You need to know the blood sugars, right? And we're to come back and we're going to do a show on checking blood sugars. What are some ways to check blood sugars? What are some good ways to check blood sugars? Why we check blood sugars? You know, everybody has all these insulin, these continuous monitors now, and they're becoming the wave of the future. They're the newest technology, so we're going to do a show on that as well. Okay, so we want to make sure that you get back and you watch those other videos that we did, and you may need to take this one and you may need to review it. Go back and look at those things that we did, the examples that we gave, so that you're aware of how to do that. Always, once again, working with your healthcare provider to make sure that you guys are working in concert. And if you want to send them this video, this is a great one to do, a great video for them to have. Show them, ask them if this is something that they think that you guys can work on together, right? If you would like to work with me personally, we'll tell you here in a minute how you can do that. But first, let's hop over and let's do our thought of the day. All right, now thought of the day is this. that I am sufficient. That's it. I am sufficient. Often we go through life comparing ourselves to other people. And in this world of social media, it's easy to think that somebody else has a better life than I do. After all, we're only seeing the highlight reel, right? They don't show the struggle. They don't show the problems that they went through. They don't show the difficulty. They don't show the years. They don't show the work. And so we think that everybody looks the way they look in their social media profile, in the pictures, right? They've got the filters on. Now, I'm going to try one of those filters, by the way. I'm going to come on here and put one of those filters, see what I look like. But I am sufficient. I'm sufficient with my bald head. I'm sufficient with my big nose. I'm sufficient with my quirky sense of humor. I'm sufficient in my body. I'm sufficient with my knowledge. I'm sufficient with everything that's in me right now. Now, don't get me wrong. That doesn't mean that I don't work to improve, because we all have to work to improve ourselves. But at this moment, with the gifts that I have, I'm sufficient. I don't have to try to be like anybody else. I don't have to envy. I don't have to be jealous of their car, their house, their wife, their husband, their children. I don't have to be jealous of their degree. They may have more money than I do. They may have a bigger house than I have. They may be having a job that everybody would want to have. But at this moment, I'm sufficient. And if you can be happy, change that. If you can be joyous where you are, there's always going to be a benefit. Because if you're not content, then you are always reaching for something else in anxiety and stress and desperation. I want you to say that. I want you to listen to that. I didn't say that you should not reach for it. What I said is that you're always reaching in anxiety and stress and desperation. And that makes all the difference. Because if you're reaching out with a sense of, I've got to get better, I want to get better, I can get better, that's different from, I got to get better because my neighbor has such and such, and I want to beat them. I want to be them. I want to be like them. Their lives are better than mine. That is not the case, because I am sufficient. And that is our thought for today. All right. And Jeff is saying, he said he loves his Freestyle Libre 3. That's right, Jeff. They are out. They are out. And we haven't gotten them in our office yet, but we have some people who are definitely using them. We've prescribed them. And I can't wait to get my hand on one. And I'm going to hope to do a demo with one of those here soon here on the channel. So guys and gals, thank you for stopping by. Always thank you for stopping by. I'm excited once again that we have our Sugar Busters that's coming up. Let me see if I can pull that up. Let's see. Let me pop through some of these. Yeah, there you go. Sugar Busters with Dr. Dwain Woode, starting on March 15th, just 2 days away. If you've not signed up, you want to make sure you do that. You want to get over to DwainWoodeMD.com is the website, DwainWoodeMD.com/sugarbusters. DwainWoodeMD.com/sugarbusters, and make sure that you are in the seat ready for that. We don't want to have heart attacks. We don't want to have strokes. We don't want to go on dialysis. We don't want to lose limbs. But we also don't want to be depressed and feeling like we are isolated because of the complications that come from these diseases. And like I said before, whenever you're talking about chronic diseases, most of them are diseases that some sugar is going to be involved, right? And I'm pulling up right here so that you guys can see that. There we go. So DwainWoodMD.com. Let's pop over there. If you go to the website, you'll see that there. Look at that. 1 day, 20 hours, 44 minutes, and 50 seconds. All right. It's ticking away. Make sure that you get over there to Sugar Busters with Dr. Dwain Woode. We had the early bird special and we're in the regular pricing right now. Be sure to get over there. If you go to our website, you will see our free offering. Learn how successful people create the life they want. Click on that and you'll get our free book, and it's called 7 Keys to Success. 7 Keys to Success. Also, scrolling through our on our website, you'll see our blog, and our blog is growing. We've got lots of good stuff out there. The magic of words, how to use language. Let's pop that one up. How to use language to create your reality. Our words are so powerful. So remember that those are, I don't want to say they're magic, but they can really change our reality because they affect our thoughts. And then, of course, our podcast. Make sure you get over there. And if you know someone who does not do YouTube or they like podcasts, you will find our shows over there and some more exciting things that we are doing. Okay, so DwainWoodMD.com. Thank you for stopping by. Make sure that you are in those seats for Sugar Busters and come on back next week for the show. Glad that you're here. This is Dr. Dwain Woode, Woode with an E. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health, take charge of your life, avoid complications, create the life you've always wanted, and we are connecting. That's our new word. Thank you for being here. Cheryl says that my insurance will not cover the cost of my Libre. Cheryl, that's another, as you guys are talking, all these shows that are coming into my head, one of the things that we've got to do. So Cheryl, drop me a message, and I can talk to you a little bit about that and of what I tell my patients to do in that case. Okay. All right, guys. Good night, and gals. See you next week. And I look forward to seeing lots of you in Sugar Busters with Dr. Dwain Woode starting on March the 15th at 5 p.m. Good night.